What if a modern passenger jet carrying 239 people could simply vanish in an age of satellites, radar, and constant global communication? On the night of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 departed on what should have been a routine journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Less than an hour later, the aircraft disappeared from radar, and despite one of the largest and most expensive search operations in aviation history, no one has ever found the complete aircraft or determined exactly what happened on board. How can a Boeing 777, one of the most advanced commercial airliners ever built, disappear without leaving a clear explanation?
A Boeing 777 obviously doesn't just disappear.
What do the radar data, satellite signals, recovered debris, and official investigations reveal? And why does Flight 370 remain one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation? In today's documentary, we'll carefully examine the timeline, the evidence, the search efforts, and the leading theories, separating verified facts from speculation to understand what investigators know, what remains uncertain, and why this case continues to captivate the world. Before we begin, if you're fascinated by aviation mysteries, aircraft investigations, and the true stories behind history's most puzzling flights, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Aviation Mystery, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next investigation. Now, fasten your seatbelt, and let's retrace the final known journey of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Every major aviation investigation begins with a timeline, and in this case, the opening moments gave no indication that history was about to unfold. It was Saturday, March 8, 2014, just after midnight in Kuala Lumpur. Inside the departure terminal, families exchanged final embraces, business travelers checked their documents one last time, and vacationers settled into their seats, expecting to wake up in Beijing a few hours later. The aircraft assigned to the route was a Boeing 777-200ER, widely respected as one of the safest and most reliable long-haul airliners ever built. Since entering commercial service, the model had earned an outstanding safety record, transporting millions of passengers across the globe. Few could have imagined that this particular flight would become the subject of one of aviation's greatest unanswered questions. On board were 227 passengers, representing 14 nationalities, along with 12 crew members, bringing the total number of people aboard to 239. Among them were families, students, engineers, tourists, and professionals, each with plans waiting on the other side of the journey.
We had been told, which substantiated the idea of a turnback and of a flight over Malaysia was completely unfounded.
Commanding the aircraft was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a veteran pilot with approximately 18,000 hours of flying experience. Colleagues described him as calm, highly skilled, and deeply passionate about aviation. Seated beside him was First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, who was building his career under the guidance of one of the airline's most experienced captains. Weather conditions along the planned route were favorable. There were no reports of severe storms, dangerous turbulence, or operational concerns that would have raised immediate alarms. Maintenance records indicated that the aircraft had been properly serviced, and pre-flight inspections revealed no issues that would have prevented departure. At 12:41 a.m. local time, the twin engines accelerated down the runway, lifting the aircraft smoothly into the night sky. Air traffic controllers watched as the flight climbed steadily toward its assigned cruising altitude, following the established airway toward Vietnamese-controlled airspace. For the next several minutes, everything appeared exactly as expected. Flight systems transmitted normal data, radio communications were routine, and nothing suggested that the journey was unfolding any differently from thousands of overnight flights taking place around the world. Then, within a remarkably short span of time, the routine would end. A sequence of events lasting only a few minutes would challenge investigators for years. trigger the largest multinational search effort in aviation history, and leave experts asking a question that remains unanswered to this day. We'll examine those critical moments minute by minute, and the final confirmed communications before the aircraft disappeared from conventional tracking. With the aircraft established on its planned route, the flight crew remained in regular communication with air traffic control as they approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace. These handovers happen on thousands of flights every day and are considered one of the most routine parts of any international journey. At 1:19 a.m. local time, the cockpit acknowledged the final transmission from Malaysian Air Traffic Control. Good night. Malaysian 370. Nothing about those words sounded unusual. There was no hint of distress, no urgency in the captain's voice, and no indication that anything was wrong. To controllers, it was simply another professional sign-off before the aircraft checked in with the next control sector. But that expected call never came. Just minutes later, the aircraft's transponder, an onboard system that broadcasts an aircraft's identity, altitude, and position to civilian radar, stopped transmitting. Instantly, the aircraft disappeared from conventional air traffic displays. Importantly, this did not mean the aircraft itself had vanished. Military radar, which operates differently, can sometimes continue detecting an aircraft even when its transponder is no longer broadcasting. At first, there was no immediate panic. Air traffic controllers occasionally experience delayed communications caused by frequency changes or temporary radio issues. Standard procedure is to make repeated contact attempts while coordinating with neighboring control centers. As the minutes passed without a response, those routine procedures gradually turned into growing concern. Then investigators made a discovery that completely changed the direction of the case. Military radar data later indicated that the aircraft had not continued toward Beijing. Instead, it appeared to make a dramatic turn back across the Malaysian peninsula before heading over the Andaman Sea. This unexpected change raised a critical question. Was the maneuver the result of a deliberate action, or was it caused by an emergency unfolding inside the aircraft? Every second of radar data became crucial. Investigators carefully reconstructed the flight path, comparing military tracking information with satellite records and communication logs. Each new piece of evidence answered one question while creating several more. If you're enjoying this in-depth investigation and appreciate fact-based aviation documentaries, take a moment to subscribe to Aviation Mystery and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue producing carefully researched stories that separate verified evidence from speculation. By now, authorities knew this was no ordinary communication failure. A large passenger jet carrying 239 people was no longer following its planned route, and nobody knew why. As dawn broke across Southeast Asia, what had begun as a missing communication quickly escalated into an international emergency. Authorities initially concentrated their efforts along the aircraft's planned route between Malaysia and Vietnam. Rescue aircraft, naval vessels, helicopters, and surveillance teams were dispatched to search the waters where officials believed the aircraft might have gone down. Every passing hour increased the urgency, yet there was still no confirmed wreckage, no emergency locator signal, and no contact from anyone on board. Then the investigation took another unexpected turn. Military radar data suggested the aircraft had traveled in a completely different direction than originally believed. Search teams were suddenly forced to abandon large portions of the initial search area and begin again, shifting thousands of kilometers away. Valuable time had already been lost, and investigators now faced a much larger challenge. As more countries joined the operation, the scale became unprecedented. Aircraft and ships from Malaysia, Australia, China, the United States, the United Kingdom, and several other nations worked together in one of the most complex multinational search efforts ever conducted. Advanced sonar systems scanned the ocean floor. Underwater vehicles explored terrain deeper than many mountain ranges are tall. Satellites continuously searched for any sign of floating debris. Despite the enormous resources being deployed, investigators still lacked one crucial piece of information: the aircraft's final location. Then came a breakthrough that no one had expected. Although the aircraft had stopped transmitting its position through conventional systems, engineers discovered that it had continued exchanging brief automated signals with an Inmarsat satellite. These transmissions, often called handshakes, did not reveal an exact location, but they confirmed something extraordinary. The aircraft had remained airborne for several hours after it disappeared from civilian radar. Using sophisticated mathematical analysis, investigators calculated possible flight paths based on the timing and characteristics of those satellite communications. Their work narrowed the possibilities to two vast corridors, one stretching north across Asia and another extending deep into the southern Indian Ocean. As additional evidence was examined, the northern route became increasingly unlikely. Attention shifted toward one of the most remote and unforgiving regions on Earth. The southern Indian Ocean is enormous, isolated, and battered by powerful waves, unpredictable weather, and extreme depths. Searching such an environment was unlike searching on land. Even if debris existed, ocean currents could carry it hundreds or even thousands of kilometers from the point where it first entered the water. Years later, pieces of aircraft debris confirmed to be from the missing Boeing 777 would wash ashore on islands and coastlines across the western Indian Ocean. Those discoveries provided important clues about where the aircraft may have ended its journey, but they still failed to answer the question everyone wanted resolved: what happened during those final hours? If you're finding this investigation informative, please like this video, share it with fellow aviation enthusiasts, and subscribe to Aviation Mystery. Your support helps us produce carefully researched documentaries that explore aviation's most compelling cases with accuracy and depth. By this stage, investigators had assembled thousands of pages of technical evidence. Yet the most critical chapter of the story remained frustratingly incomplete, leaving experts to examine every credible possibility in an effort to understand how a modern airliner could disappear so completely. As months turned into years, the investigation shifted from searching for the aircraft to understanding the evidence that had been collected. Every radar return, satellite transmission, maintenance record, cargo manifest, crew background check, weather report, and recovered aircraft fragments were examined by teams of aviation experts from around the world. Investigators were no longer looking for a single clue. They were trying to assemble a complete picture from hundreds of individual pieces. One of the most significant breakthroughs came in July 2015, when a large aircraft component, known as a flaperon, washed ashore on Réunion Island in the western Indian Ocean. Forensic specialists carefully inspected the part, comparing serial numbers, manufacturing records, and structural characteristics. Their conclusion was clear. The flaperon belonged to the missing Boeing 777, operating as Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It was the first physical confirmation that the aircraft had indeed ended its journey in the Indian Ocean. Over the following years, additional pieces of debris were recovered along the coastlines of Mozambique, South Africa, Tanzania, and nearby islands. Oceanographers studied currents, seasonal winds, and wave patterns to understand how these fragments had drifted across thousands of kilometers of open water. While the debris helped strengthen investigators' understanding of the aircraft's likely final region, it did not reveal the sequence of events that led to its loss. Without the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, commonly known as the black boxes, many of the most important questions remain impossible to answer with certainty. This absence of definitive evidence created space for countless theories. Some suggested a catastrophic mechanical failure, Others proposed an onboard fire, a gradual loss of cabin pressure, or deliberate human intervention. Additional theories ranged from cyber interference to more extraordinary claims that gained widespread attention online. However, aviation investigators follow a different standard. A credible conclusion must be supported by verifiable evidence, not assumptions, speculation, or popularity. To date, no publicly available evidence has conclusively established exactly why the aircraft deviated from its planned route or what ultimately occurred during its final hours. The official investigation acknowledged that several possibilities were considered, but none could be confirmed beyond reasonable doubt based on the available evidence. That uncertainty is precisely what continues to make this case so compelling. Even after years of research by some of the world's leading aviation specialists, one of the most advanced commercial aircraft ever built still guards its final moments beneath an ocean that has revealed only fragments of its story. If you've enjoyed this documentary and appreciate carefully researched aviation investigations based on verified facts, subscribe to Aviation Mystery and turn on the notification bell. We're committed to bringing you in-depth documentaries that separate evidence from speculation and explore the mysteries that continue to challenge the aviation world. Although investigators uncovered remarkable clues, the biggest question remains unanswered. Can this mystery ever truly be solved? Or will Flight 370 remain one of aviation's greatest unsolved cases forever? More than a decade has passed since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared. During that time, technology has advanced, search methods have improved, and investigators have analyzed every credible lead available to them. Yet the complete story remains hidden beneath one of the most remote stretches of ocean on Earth. The disappearance of Flight 370 changed aviation forever. It prompted improvements in global aircraft tracking, encouraged airlines and regulators to strengthen real-time flight monitoring, and led to new international discussions about ensuring commercial aircraft can be located more effectively in the future. Even though many questions remain unanswered, the lessons learned from this tragedy continue to shape modern aviation safety. Behind every technical report, satellite calculation, and search mission were 239 lives, passengers and crew members whose families have spent years hoping for clarity and closure. For them, this has never been just an aviation mystery. It is a deeply personal story that continues to leave an emotional mark long after the headlines fade. Today, several independent researchers and organizations still examine newly available data, ocean drift models, and historical records. There have also been discussions about launching additional search missions based on refined analysis of the available evidence. Whether those efforts will finally locate the main wreckage remains uncertain. Perhaps one day, the ocean will reveal what it has concealed for so long. Until then, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 stands as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation history, a case that reminds us that even in an age of extraordinary technology, there are still moments that challenge our understanding. What do you think happened to Flight 370? Do you believe the missing aircraft will eventually be found? Or do you think some parts of this mystery may never be fully explained? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to subscribe to Aviation Mystery, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with friends who are fascinated by aviation and real-world investigations. Every subscription helps us continue producing high-quality documentaries based on careful research and verified information. Thank you for watching. Until our next investigation, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the mysteries of the skies.